It's pretty much impossible today to have a Linux server and not connect to the internet for one reason or another, whether it's to share files or printers across the network or just to connect to the internet and download updates. And today we're going to talk about how to connect your Linux system to the network. In order for your system to connect to the network, we need 5 pieces of information. We need a host address, we need a network subnet, we need the default gateway, we need a host name, and we need a DNS server for it to talk to and communicate to the internet. In Linux, there's 3 different ways that this can be configured. It can be manually configured using config files. You can configure it using a graphical interface in some Linux distros desktop environment, and you can configure it through the command line using different command tools. Network configuration files are what tell your system how to communicate with the network, and just depending on the distribution of Linux you're using, this can be found in different places. For example, Debian systems, they're in the /etc/network/interfaces directory, such as Ubuntu or Kali Linux. In Red Hat, they can be found in /etc/systemconfig/network scripts. And Open Suspicion, you can have them in /etc/systemconfig/network folders. What we have here is a Debian configuration file. Notice how we have the static IP address, and we have the net mask, and we have the gateway already configured in the configuration file. This is a Red Hat configuration file. Again, it has everything set up as environmental variables. Type, internet, proxy, IPv6 configured, yes. This here is my CentOS server, and I'm going to change directory into /etc, and now I'm going to cat the networks folder, and as you can see, I already have a loopback address and I have a link local address for the CentOS server that I just spun up in a cloud-based virtual machine. And the CentOS also has the /etc/systemconfig/network and network scripts folders. And so if we change into network, if we cat network-scripts, so let's change directory to network scripts and do ls, and everything is being stored in there, it looks like. So, and right there is my resolve files for DNS IP assignment. Newer distributions have started using a tool called NetPlan. Newer Ubuntu distributions have started using a tool called NetPlan to manage the network settings. NetPlan uses YAML text files, which are located in the /etc/netpan folder to define the settings for each network installed on the system. By default, it passes these settings to the network manager. Let me bring up my Ubuntu virtual box so you can see an example. This is my Ubuntu virtual machine. Change directory /etc/netplan. And I'll do a quick ls, and there you'll see my network manager YAML file. In Red Hat, you'll define the network in 2 separate files. The first file defines the network and the network mask, and a file name after the network interface. We usually have like the file name -etho0 or etho1, something like that would be what it's called. The second file will define the host name and the default gateway. Now, DNS settings are usually standard across the Linux universe here, and they're all handled in the /etc/resolve.conf. And you can see on your screen an example of the Ubuntu resolve.conf file and an example of a CentOS resolve.conf file. The name server denotes the DNS server for your network. You can have more than one, you just have to add multiple name server entries in the file. The search defines domains used to search host names. In Linux distros that have a desktop environment, you have what's called a network manager, which is a graphical user interface. Let me bring up my Ubuntu machine so I can show you more about it. Alright, it stays in the system tray of the desktop. As you can see here, I have a wired connection. It would change to, if it was wireless, it would look kind of like on your cell phone with a little antenna signal there. And you simply click it, and you see wired connection or whatever connection you have. Clicking on it will give you the option to turn off or go to wired settings. I can go to wired settings and click the gear icon. And here I can give myself an identity. I can change the DHCP and do it manually if I need to do DNS manually. I have IP version 6 settings if I want to edit those. I can even through here, if I want to connect to a VPN of some kind, I even have that option here to either set up OpenVPN 2 here. Now, if you happen to be in a environment such as a server environment where you don't have the graphical user interface desktop for your Linux version, all you have is the command line. There's a lot of command line tools to help you edit the network settings or look up the network settings. Some useful ones is this NMTUI, which is a stripped down version of Network Manager, and you have NMCLI, which is a text-only interface. And let's do NMCLI first. And it looks like it shows you whatever is currently connected and working. And if we do the man page for it real quick, we'll see that it is a command line tool for controlling Network Manager and reporting network statuses. It can be utilized as a replacement for in-applet or other graphical clients. So now let's try out NMTUI and see it's a stripped-down version of command line here. We'll just quit it real quick. And let's do the man page of NMTUI. And it's a curses-based TUI application for interacting with Network Manager. Now, if you're on an older system that doesn't support those methods we just mentioned, there's some other options. You also have if command, which displays the IP address and network mask for interfaces that are currently connected. You have the IP command, which displays the IP address and net mask, router values for interface. The IP command is very popular because of just how robust and how everything it shows you. The IWconfig is for wireless interfaces. It sets the SSID and encryption key for wireless. And the route is sets the default router address. Network bonding allows you to add multiple interfaces into one virtual network. You then tell Linux to treat this virtual network in one of 3 different bonding types. You have load balancing, which is network traffic is shared between the interfaces. You have aggregation, where interfaces are combined to form a larger network pipe. And you have active or passive, where one interface acts as the backup for another interfaces. So first, to do this, first you have to load the module in the kernel. So it'd be sudo mod probe bonding, and then this creates a bond 0 interface that you can define using the IP utility. So it'd be like sudo IP and then the link you want to bond, which I'm not connected to anything right now, so I can't really do this. And then the bond mode. And then it's just a matter of, once you do that, you just add the network interface to the bond. So it'd be sudo IP and set that to etho master bond 0. And then Linux would treat, if I was doing this to actually connect to network, Linux would then treat bond 0 as a single interface. Now sometimes you may want to do what's called a network bridge. This is where you connect different NICs to different networks. You can use the brctl command to set up a bridge between 2 networks. You also must set the IP forward parameter to 1 inside the etc/systemctl.config folder. Now review question time. First one, what command can you use to both display and set the IP address, net mask, and default router value? The second one is, what folder do Red Hat based systems use to store network configuration files? Now if you need a moment to pause and go and look back through the slide, you can, because we have discussed this already previously. And here's our answers. The command that you use to both display and set the IP address, network mask, and default router values is command IP. And the folder that Red Hat based system used to store network configuration files is the /etc/systemconfig/network scripts folder. Thank y'all for being patient with me and joining me today, and I hope you join me next time.